yippee-yi-yi, was pollution cause us water, earth and sky. So we've got to stop the fracking. Give us all your packing, or there'll be a great big earthquake and we'll die.
Norwich, Peterborough, Nottingham, Leicester, Birmingham, London, Cambridge, Canterbury, Folkestone, Eastbourne, Brighton, Chichester, Tenby, Belfast, in all about 70 towns and cities around the UK. Not only that, but if you can hold out for this, Paris, Marseille, Barcelona, Madrid, Lisbon, Geneva, Zurich, Brussels, Antwerp, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Oslo, Ramallah, Aleppo, Kiev, Moscow, New Delhi, Islamabad, Yokohama, Melbourne, Sydney, Hong Kong, Pyongyang, Kathmandu, Brisbane, Adelaide, Tuvalu, Fiji, Vancouver, Alaska, Hudson's Bay, Washington, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Montreal, Reykjavik, Buenos Aires, Santiago, Montevideo, Bogota, Panama, Casablanca, Cape Town, Burundi, and a whole load of places that you and I may never have heard of. Yes! So there are more than 2,700 marches like this around the world happening today. And on the Avaz petition, which is only one of the petitions being submitted to the Climate Summit in New York on Tuesday, there are already more than 2 million signatures. So you'll be fully justified in thinking that what's happening here is tremendous and part of something potentially very powerful. Probably the biggest global event showing how much we share a passionate concern for the future of the climate of all things, which is an unusual thing to do. Before I go on, I'd like to invite Dave Larry to step up, say a few words, because he has a little baby here with age 6 days, I believe.
Hi, thank you all for coming. Thanks Tony and Richard for all your hard work putting this together with our massive budget, no pounds and no pence. 2,000 events around the world and all of these people here today in Newcastle, so this is fantastic. This is the tip of the iceberg. Our new baby Theo was born last week. He's a bit shy and he's actually fallen asleep, I think. So he asked me to read out the letter he's been working on for a little while. So he says, "Dear leaders, hi, my name is Theo. Although you probably don't know me, I'm citizen 7,221,025,989. And I'm the person on this planet. I was born last week. I wanted to say hi and let you know that it's only been a short while, but I love this planet as it is. I know you may think that growth of GDP, economic stability, and global competitiveness are what I need. But what I really, really need is clean air, clean water, birds to look at, bees to pollinate, bats to eat the insects, lovely clean beaches to play on, and not too many freak weather. If I'm winded like his dad too, there's more. If I'm lucky, I will even live to see the year 2100. I can take on the baton long before that, but I just ask you that you don't destroy my beautiful planet before I've even grown up. Thank you. Good luck in New York, not a place I know yet. We're all depending on you. Theo."
The meat industry is one of the biggest damagers to the atmosphere, and if you don't want to go vegetarian or vegan, I appreciate that's quite a big commitment. Just simply going on a meat-free Monday can make a significant impact on your own personal carbon footprint. Thank you.
That's a great map. Yeah. I really like it. Big day. What is
Wake up call! Climate change! Wake up call! Wake up call! Climate change! 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 Wake up call! Climate change!
Call. Climate change. Wake up call.
Climate change, wake up call!
Climate change! Wake up call!
Climate change, wake up call!
Climate change! Wake up call! Climate change! Wake up call!
Climate change. Wake up call. Climate change. Wake up call.
Climate change! Wake up call! 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 Wake up! Wake up call!
Wake up call.
Wake up call! 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 Climate change!
Wake up call!
Climate change!
Wake up call!
Climate change!
Wake up call!
Climate change!
Wake up call!
Climate change!
Wake up call!
Climate change!
Wake up call! Wake up call! Wake up call! Climate change!
Wake up call!
Climate change!
Wake up call!
Climate change!
Wake up call!
Wake up call!
Wake up call! Wake up call! Wake up call! Wake up call!
Wake up call! Climate change! Wake up call! Climate change! Wake up call! Wake up call! Climate change! Wake up call! Climate change! Wake up call! Climate change! Wake up call! Wake up call! Climate change! 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 Wake up call! Wake up call! Climate change! Wake up call! Climate change! Wake up call!
Okay, David Golding here. David, yeah, fine. You want to come up here? When our children or grandchildren or nephews or nieces ask us, what did you do about climate change, mummy or daddy or uncle or aunt or grandma? Then we can say, we did what we could. We took action, we demonstrated, we marched, we signed petitions, we put pressure on our government to... As you know, this march today is mainly directed towards heads of state meeting at the Climate Summit in New York on Tuesday. But we've got a long list of challenges here at home. The UK government has adopted a policy of reducing its carbon emissions by 80% by 2050, which sounds really something, although not even that is going to be enough. But government policy is just full of contradictions. So there's an 80% reduction intended by 2050, and yet the government plans to completely accommodate the expected huge increase in air traffic and to build a third runway, probably at Heathrow. Some of you may have seen the one-page ads that the Heathrow Airport have taken out in the papers recently, staking their claim to building a third runway. So there's a disconnect there, isn't there?
Yeah.
Isn't there? Meanwhile, incidentally, our government will pass a law to enable fracking companies to frack underneath your houses without your permission. Disconnect. Another disconnect. You may have seen two Scotsmen walk into a television studio. One says, Scotland has 24, I can't do a Scots accent, Scotland has 24 billion barrels of oil under the North Sea, which will enable us to become independent. Well, that didn't happen, but the other said, that's tosh. There are only 15 billion barrels of oil under the North Sea, and that wouldn't support independence. Neither of them said 15 barrels of oil produces 6,450,000,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide when you burn it, and 24 billion barrels of oil produce 10,320,000,000 metric tons of CO2. Neither of them said, well, we know all that oil is there, but hey, we won't pull it, we won't excavate it, we won't burn it. Another disconnect. We demand to protect the things that we love, to protect our homes from flooding, our seasides from inundation, the amazing diversity of creatures and plants on this planet, our children and theirs into the future, and especially millions of people living in distant places, on low-lying islands, and land not much above sea level, and in polar regions, and near to deserts that will increase in size. They'll really bear the brunt of climate change. Friends, we really need a major wake-up, and we are part of that. We have to be the planet's consciousness, to be its advocate and its voice. And it's befitting that one of the organisations that's brought us together today is Avaz, the online campaigning group, Avaz meaning voice. Stay with us. This is just the start of a number of events. You will know that there's a major climate conference in Peru this December, and there's a major conference in Paris in 2015. So we'll be asking you to come and help us collectively express our voice again before those occasions. So we're going to be with an imaginary petition. It's a little petition with 2,105,271 signatures on it. Please accept this imaginary petition from us.
Thank you very much, everybody, and hey, what an excellent turnout indeed in this fantastic weather. You've done tremendously well in a very short time. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
A few words from David Golding. David, perhaps you can introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm a regional voluntary representative for the Christian Agency Tier Fund, which has been one of the leaders in terms of the aid agencies for action against climate change. You're all still too far away, by the way, and I won't continue unless you get closer. Call to action on global poverty and climate change. And I see some of our supporters here as well, so I'm very grateful for that. Now, I don't know whether you've noticed, over the past few days and weeks, there's been a lot of talk about promises. Have you heard all that stuff about promises? Yeah. And it's all to do with the Scots. Now, our leaders made promises to the people of Scotland, and since they've made them, there's been a lot of mutterings here in England as to whether they should have been made. I would simply say our representatives made them, and we should keep them. But you know, those promises we made to the people of Scotland, legitimate though they may have been, and those most certainly mandatory on us to keep them, they certainly are, they pale into insignificance in importance compared with the promises that our leaders have made on climate change. But I haven't seen much indication that they're making serious moves to keeping their promises. Let me quote to you the words of the truly great climate scientist, NASA's chief climate scientist, the veteran Professor James Hansen. This is what he says about it. He says it just perfectly. They, our leaders, they talk about goals which sound impressive, maximum 2 degrees and so on. They talk about goals which sound impressive, but the actions are such that it will be impossible to reach those goals. And we've had far too much of that. One of the best speeches I've ever heard on climate change addressed to our leaders was by a person at the age of some of you young people. It's great to see so many of the younger generation here today. Thanks for turning up. Usually when I give a speech, it's all people older than myself. But so really thanks for that. But this was a person of your age, and they were addressing the world leaders at the UN Climate Conference in Durban in South Africa in 2011. And at the end, they asked a representative from the youth delegation to stand up. It was the only sense that had been made for the whole conference, as far as I'm concerned. This is what she said to the world leaders. You have been negotiating all my life. Now, she was about 16, I suppose. She said, you have been negotiating all my life. And how much have we got that's concrete as a result of it? I might say there were roars of approval from the rest of the youth delegation at the back, and they all should have joined in. So yes, we've been disappointed. I'm no starry-eyed optimist, and those of you who have been campaigning on this for some time won't be either. We've been bitterly disappointed for far too often. However, let's not get discouraged at this point, because we have a precedent. I want to give you a precedent for the situation we face. It's early 1940. The whole of Europe has fallen under the Nazi jackboot. Right up to the Channel Port, right up to Scandinavia and Norway and so on, and Poland and all the other countries, all completely controlled by a fanatic armed to the teeth that is bent on our destruction. Now, at that time, Churchill convened his war cabinet, just 5 of them, including himself. And 2 of them, Neville Chamberlain and Lord Halifax, who was the Foreign Secretary, 2 of the group were in favour of suing for terms. They said, we're obviously fooled, we're obviously beaten. Indeed, Joseph Kennedy, who was the US ambassador at that time to Britain, said Britain will be beaten by the end of the month. That was the situation. This was really dire. But Churchill would have none of it. He was contemptuous about this proposal to surrender. Britain would be reduced to a slave state with a puppet government. And so he said, we won't do that. He was supported, I might say, by Clement Attlee and Arthur Greenwood, and so their opinion prevailed. But just shortly afterwards, he addressed the full cabinet in these terms. This is what he said. Listen to these words and apply them to our situation for climate change. He said, if this Long Island story of ours is to end at last, let it end only when each of us lies choking in his own blood on the ground. There was a pause, then a great roar, and many of them were in tears, and we went forward together. Now, I want to suggest to you that if he'd been here today, and if he'd been inspired by the same spirit, I don't know whether he would have been, but if he had been, this is what he would have said. If this long human story of ours is to descend into chaos and climate collapse, Let that not be marked by our supine complicity and meek acquiescence. Let it not be marked by our meek acquiescence. Let none of you here be guilty of supine complicity and meek acquiescence. I'll finish up with one further point, and this was from a modern great man who would have desired to have done far greater if he'd had far more ordinary people at his back. This is the words of Barack Obama. This is what he says, but we can apply it to ourselves. We are not bound to win. We are bound to be true. We are not bound to succeed. We are bound to let shine whatever light we have. Thank you, friends, for your attention.